Welcome to another episode of Hail the Queen, a podcast about authenticity, happiness, and pursuing your dreams. My name is Rayna van Aust, and I'm your host. My guest today is Nic Imai. Nic is a Singapore-based lifestyle photographer. We happen to know each other for a couple of years, and when we met, we were both work-wise at very different places. We both did very different things in very different industries than where we are now and what we do now. And this was the reason I wanted to have Nic on the podcast. I wanted to talk to her about her journey from where she was a couple of years ago to what she does now and what she describes as her life's work, photography. We ended up talking about intuition, which is, as you'll hear, a big part of her journey. We also talked about being intentional. If you visit Nic's website, if you work with her, if you get to know her, you would see that being intentional is very, very important for her, which comes as no surprise. As Nic says, the universe is always listening. Nic also said something very interesting about being intentional, and that is being intentional is what makes something authentic to you. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Nic. Please make sure to check out the link in the description of this episode and read my behind the scenes insights on my conversation with Nic. Please share. And now, enjoy. Hi, Nic, and welcome to the Hail the Queen podcast.
Hi, Rayna. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like it's been forever, and so much has happened in both our lives since.
Yes, I was thinking this morning as I was preparing for this episode, and I was thinking how we actually met. I can't remember how many years ago that was, but we were both at the place in our lives when we were masking a lot, Sunday.
Well, we have to be clear on what that means for now, right? Because that hasn't.
Nowadays, it means completely different thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we were trendsetters.
Yeah, we were, right? We were face masking people, if you're wondering what we were doing.
Yes, face masking. Yeah. But I remember because back then I had an online boutique for organic skincare, and you were a big fan of organic skincare, one particular brand, Leilani.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you on Instagram with the mermaid mask, one of the most iconic Leilani products.
Yeah.
So I remember I had this mask, which I love personally very much, from my products. I was like, I'm going to convert Nic to that mask that I love. And I tried, and it didn't work.
I was going to say, how did that work out?
Do we really need to go there?
No. I'm a typical Capricorn there, I think. Very loyal once I found something that I absolutely loved. So Leilani's mermaid mask is still in my, it's probably one of the very few masks that I actually use. So die-hard fan.
Years later, and we're still talking about it.
I know, right?
But it's also interesting because back then I said I had this business about organic skincare, which I don't have anymore. So many things have changed since then. And I can say the same for you. You live pretty far from me nowadays. Back then you were still in Sweden. Now you're in Singapore.
Yeah.
So how did this happen from face masking on the side for a hobby to a lifestyle photographer?
Yeah, gosh, I feel like, how long do you have right now?
I don't know what the limitations of recording of Zoom are, so let's test it.
Well, I'm going to try and keep this fairly short and somewhat entertaining, but yeah, I mean, our move to Singapore was really because of my husband's job at the time, and then I luckily also continued in my previous career, which is as a buyer. So I was working in procurement, and I ended up working for the same company here in Singapore because they had a sister office, I guess. And but then I was also getting deeper into clean, green beauty. Even though I feel like I've been in that industry, sort of as a blogger, and then also working with the Clean Beauty Box, formerly Art of Organics, and also actually Leilani. I still don't know what to call it. Like, is it green beauty? Is it clean beauty? And there are so many opinions about it. Now I'm quite happy to just be more of a consumer, and not be so heavily involved in it. But it was definitely a big, big, big part of my life for many years, and it still is. I mean, I feel that the knowledge that we gained is always with us, and it really does sort of shape our lifestyle. We're always going to be ingredient label readers. I mean, yeah, so many things. So I was still working procurement, and then I was also working with Green Beauty, and then I became pregnant, very surprisingly. And then when my son was born, obviously I started taking pictures of him, and I've always had a passion for photography. Before my son came along, it was obviously product photography and trying to create beautiful images, with Leilani products and the products that I really loved. So that was really fun. But then, my son came, and then it kind of the subject basically changed. And then I realized how much fun it was, and it kind of grew from there, really. And for many years, I was following this husband and wife photography team, I guess you could say. And they were really the ones that kind of inspired me to take this pretty big leap of faith and do something completely different. I went on maternity leave, and then I kind of never went back. I never went back to corporate or anything like that. And now I really could never imagine going back to corporate life or working for someone else. I really love the freedom that my current job affords me, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to do it. Yeah.
I totally recognize that part with the freedom to and when I say freedom, usually the conversation is around to choose when you start your day, what your day looks like, but it's so much more than that. It's the freedom to design your life in a way and to express yourself in whatever way feels right for you.
Yes, exactly. Because I totally agree. I think like that whole, I get to choose my hours and I get to choose where I work from. That's really such a small part of it. I feel for me, photography has really become this expression of who I am. It's really sort of like an extension of myself. And, it gives me so much happiness to give other people happiness and to see it. Yeah, it's so there's a lot of freedom in that, because I can just really let my imagination run wild, during the shoots, and then also even once the shoot is over, like how can I add more value to my clients? So yeah, it's really fun. I love kind of getting nerdy about it in my own way.
The part that I'm really curious and which is kind of what most of my work and also this podcast evolves around is, how did you end up at this place now where you say, I feel happy, I enjoy it, I would never go back? So for instance, when you were back in Sweden doing procurement, or even in Singapore when you moved and you still had that job, was it that how to describe it, were you restless with like I'm doing this, but it's not for me. There's something else I want to do. Was it that I always knew I wanted to be a photographer, or how did that evolve?
Yeah, so basically my entire working life, um, I started working quite young, and that's like a whole different story because it's like life, family circumstances. But my whole working career, until I'm doing what I do now, I've always had this feeling of like, it's something else. It's something else that I want to be doing, should be doing. I don't know. It's almost like I can't really describe it, but it's just something I felt in my soul. And, even with something rewarding like teaching children, because I was teaching children for a good number of years, that's incredibly rewarding. And even when I left it for procurement, um, I do remember feeling a slight tug at my heart, and how, it's you're touching so many children's lives and you can be such a positive impact. It's incredibly tiring, as I'm sure any teachers listening will relate to. But I still knew it wasn't it for me. I had too many days where I was like, this isn't it. There is something else. And for a while, I thought it was doing something in the beauty industry, the clean, green beauty industry. And for a while, it definitely was. But then again, it wasn't quite it either. And then once I started on this journey of photography, and now that I'm really doing, like, for each day I'm getting deeper and deeper into it. I launched my own company and I have a website and everything. I really pour my heart and soul into it. It's just, I feel like I've come home. And actually I got sent a today, and it's so weird. I need to bring it up because I don't want to get it wrong. And I just felt like, wow, how serendipitous that it actually arrived today, and having this, taking part in this podcast with you. But oh my goodness. Okay. No, I can't find it. Okay. So I'm going to have to just try to repeat it off memory. But it was basically along the lines of, if you've been doing something or whatever it is that you're doing and you feel it comes very effortlessly to you, you've actually been doing it over several lifetimes. And I was like, wow, that's pretty deep, right? I'm not sure they had a Sony mirrorless camera in these other lifetimes, but
It's very funny you mentioned this, because I was just thinking that these words you just shared go also to show that something which very often we get lost in, I'm a photographer, I'm a coach, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer. That's just one way of expressing it. You're doing so much more than that. Just like with you, for instance, I don't see you as someone who takes photos. It's through these photos that you show beautiful moments or help people capture their beautiful moments. I don't know how you did that before in a different lifetime without a camera, but that's something I'm pretty sure you could have done.
yeah, that's so true. And I think, and even with you mentioning with the whole doctors and lawyers and things, I think I'm hoping that we kind of start moving away a little bit more from all these different labels. I mean, it's very convenient and good to have them to quickly be able to say what it is that a person does, for example. But it's still quite limiting. It can be quite limiting. I mean, each profession can be just so much more as well.
Yeah, it is true. I remember I remember as if that was thousands of years ago. It was a year ago when I started coaching, and I so wanted to do it. I knew it in my soul. That's something that I not only wanted to do, but I was good at doing because I had been doing it already. But then when I started doing it, it's like, it just doesn't feel right. And I was very confused about that because I knew I wanted to do it. I knew it was part of me, but why was I having difficult time with it? Until I realized, because I'm not only a coach, coaching is part of it. And every time I say I'm a coach, I'm actually ignoring all the other things that I do. Like, for instance, this podcast.
Yes.
It's also part of what I do. There's another project I'm starting. That's also part of what I do. And when I say I'm only a coach, it just as if the others don't exist.
Right. Yeah. It's very limiting. Yeah.
Going back to what you just said, what you do is not really the profession you have. It's much more than that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the road here obviously gave me a lot of different other roles, that I needed to do. I mean, I work predominantly with families, so there are children involved. So the fact that I've actually worked with children, I mean, I worked with children for over a decade, so I don't find them, strange little beings, like some adults can be like, around children. I don't find that at all. So, I think it's funny. I feel every job that I've had has definitely led to the one that I have now. And it's so weird calling it a job. I mean, I write about it on my Instagram posts every now and then, like, oh, I love my job so much. And every time I hit that word job, I'm like, but it's such a, I don't know.
It's a 9 to 5 thing and so much
Yeah.
more than that. Yeah. I know. I'm still trying to figure out the word. What is it? It's not job, it's not work. What is it?
And I guess, I mean, right now I would say it is my life's work, but also I make sure that I stay fairly humble for other things that are coming down the pipeline, in say 5 years or 10 years, so, and that could look completely differently as well. But for now, I'd say maybe that's a bit more accurate than just a job.
And speaking of jobs, what I'm curious is, when you were a child, what did you dream of becoming when you grew up?
So I always wanted to be a vet, actually, for the
That's
longest time.
interesting.
Yeah, I really wanted to become a vet. But I have a very, very dear family friend who told me that before I even said that, and she's known me since I was like, oh gosh, I don't know, like a baby, actually. She's known me since I was a baby. She said that I told her I wanted to become a pop star or something. And I'm like, okay, well, I must have watched something on TV and said that. But for the longest time, I wanted to be a vet because I loved animals. My grandma had a dog, which used to be my mother's dog, but she handed it over when she left for Europe. And so I just loved her. And yeah, I just loved dogs in general. And I think I was probably just thinking I would work with dogs. I don't think I really fully grasped that if I were to become a vet, I would probably have to work with other animals. And then in school at around 13, I was like, oh, I'm not very good at the science thing. So maybe I should just, drop the vet dream. And that's pretty much how I dropped it, actually, because I just didn't think I was good enough at science and things. And then I wanted to be a lawyer. And that, I think I had read too many John Grisham books, because I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. And then after that, I wanted to be a fashion designer. So that's something I'd had in my childhood as well, because I like to draw like dresses and evening gowns and things like that. And that's actually what steered me into procurement, because I was like, okay, working with fashion, I'm almost 30 at the time, might be a bit difficult. So how else can I work with fashion? And then I thought, buying, merchandising. And then when I came out of my procurement course, I I didn't go into fashion at all. I went into gas, which is like,
Yeah, because I remember it wasn't a fashion thing that it wasn't a fashion company that you worked for.
no, it was a gas company. Very technical and boring for me. Very boring.
So you went from a vet to so many things before you became a photographer. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know you mentioned that it was when your son was born that you started taking photos of him. Was there something like a specific event that happened and you decided, you know what, I'm going to go for photography. I really want to do this.
Yeah, so there was actually. This was just a few months after Leon was born, that I really started thinking about it. And so for the longest time, I had been following, as I mentioned earlier, that this husband and wife photography team. Um, Even before I've thought about photography being a thing, and they capture people. They don't even capture. They're not into product photography, but I just loved their style. It was very light and airy. So I was following them for many years, and I loved their story because before they became a photography team, they were actually elementary school teachers, for many, many years. And and then they switched, they switched careers. It was the wife's sort of passion that started it all. And so on the weekends, she would study and go off on shoots. And then eventually her husband joined her, and they were able to quit their day jobs and go full time. But for a while, I think they even were doing both, right? They were working as photographers and also elementary school teachers. Because obviously it's very hard to just drop your day job that pays the bills, right? So I was really inspired by their story, and they're very genuine, down to earth. They really share a lot. And they also are educators now, which is perfect because, as we were saying earlier, every job that we do helps us in the next one. And now, they're teaching people who want to become photographers how to be one. So they offer different courses, and two of them are open for enrollment all year round, and then their business course is only open twice a year, I think it is. And every time it opens for enrollment, obviously they talk about it and they share like their previous students' stories. And yeah, I'd seen this like happen like, a couple of years, because as I said, I was following them for a while. And then just that year that I decided, okay, this is like, I really want to do it. I was on the couch in this flat that I'm in right now, and something just said, do it. You're going to do it. Like it was very clear. It was, this is it kind of thing. And my husband was away on business. So I called him and I told him, he knew he knew a little about these like dreams of mine. I'd kind of been talking about them a little bit. But I think it also must have come out of the blue. I mean, I caught him right in the middle of his working day, and I was like, honey, I want to enroll in this course, and I want to do this. And I think I'm going to do it. No, I think I can do it. Like, I really see myself. And he was so like, yeah, I think you should. Yeah, sounds amazing, honey. Like, do it. Just do it. I support you, and I think you'll do a great job. And so basically that was that, right? Funny thing was, this was right when their business course was opening. But of course, that's not the course that I went for. I went for their shooting and editing course first. And I thought once it opens next time, I'll join it. So I've taken all three of their courses now, and it's really thanks to them that I even have the business that I have today. Our styles are a bit different. I think I have a bit more kind of pop of color in my images, but I mean, everything that I know really is what I've learned from them. And it's just amazing as well that you're able to, excuse me, learn from other people online now, and even though you're millions of miles away. And that's really how it all started. So there was definitely, I guess, the time was right when they were opening up their business course again for that period. I felt like everything was aligned. Like I was ready to do it. I was ready to really go all in and trust myself and believe in myself. My husband clearly as well. Because I'd seen them, talk about their business, every time it opened up, it was always like this extra push, right? And this time it just really tugged at my heart, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And that's what I did.
I'm so happy you did that.
Yeah. Me too.
And honestly, looking at all the beautiful photos that you share, and my daughter is already 8 years old, and sometimes think, I wish I was pregnant now and I was in Singapore and I could go for one of those photo shoots with you.
Well, I would have loved to capture you. Truly.
There's no baby too coming, so no. Maybe we can do a family shoot.
Absolutely.
when this whole Corona thing is
behind
is
it.
over.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about this moment, when that voice in you said, "Do it," because that pretty much sounds to me like your intuition saying, this is the way you need to go right now. Do you believe in intuition?
1,000 million trillion %. And infinity. Definitely. And I feel, so for me, I've always been one to listen to my intuition. It gets a bit messy when my intuition is interfering with my mind, and that's where I'm like, ooh, and you're kind of on that seesaw. You're not quite sure what to do. But there have been moments in my life where it's been very strong and very loud. And this was one of them. And actually, I was thinking, or it just crossed my mind recently, that I use my intuition a lot during my shoots. So, and what I mean by that is that, I have a plan, but if anyone with children knows that a plan is really just a plan, right? It's not going to go the way that you want it to. So I have a loose plan in my mind about how I want a shoot to go, but it really does come down to the children specifically. If I have couples shoots, that's a bit different because, adults are a bit, they're a bit better at listening in general. But with children, it's just really intuitive. And if you think about it, children themselves are very intuitive, right? They don't really stop and use their prefrontal cortex very often. So I realize that I use my intuition a lot. And I feel shoots go much better when I let it, when I listen to it, basically. So, and I think, there are so many photographers and so many of us work in so many different ways. Some of us like that organization and, like those lists and check it off. But in my case, I've really noticed that, it really goes with my intuition.
And have you always been so in touch with your intuition as you are now?
Yeah, I guess I have. I don't know, as a child whether I knew that it was intuition, but when I think back on how I was and what my mother used to tell me, she used to say that, you really knew what you wanted. And and with people, like as a child, I was very black and white. And by that, I mean, I either liked you or I didn't, and it was a feeling. Even now I'm 37, but I can still remember this person who I believe was just someone my father did business with back in the 80s. So I was like, what, 5 years old? But I still remember this feeling that I don't like this. I don't like this person, you know? And I was very clear in how I didn't like him, because, if we were crossing the road and he attempted to, you know, grab my hand to cross, like I wouldn't let him, or I would like just move away so I wasn't close to him. And I mean, he never did anything, but it's just that feeling. And I think that's probably a child's intuition about something, I guess.
Which makes sense, because intuition, it doesn't always make sense. Most often than not, it's not easy to put it in words, to describe with words what your intuition is saying. It's just like this tug of like, go this way, do this,
Yeah,
stay
exactly.
here, or stay away from that person, like in your case. And especially as a child, how do you go and explain to the grown-ups, like, I don't like this guy?
Yeah, exactly. So I do feel that we need to, as a society, come back to really talking about intuition and valuing it and honoring it, especially in children, because they are really a bundle of intuition, and if a child is showing signs of something, especially if it's negative, I think we really just need to not brush it off with logic or anything like that. I think that's really important. And, if we do more of that, then also we'll have more adults growing up with stronger intuition. I feel it's equally as important, of, equally important as the mind, or the intelligence of the mind, right? I mean, intuition is kind of like the intelligence of the heart, I guess, and the gut. Yeah, another very this has nothing to do with my work or anything, but where I basically heard a voice was actually, fun fact, um, when I got engaged, not to my husband, but to my ex, and he proposed to me. And before I even said yes, because I did say yes at the time, but before I even said yes, a very clear voice in my head said, "This isn't it." And I remember thinking, whoa, that's so strange. Like, why did I hear that? And what does it mean? And well, we basically, ended up going separate ways, which was definitely a blessing. But yeah, it's like one part of me knew, you know. And then we didn't actually break up until like a year after that, after he proposed. But I'll never forget it because it was just so clear and loud.
Yeah, well, I'm asking you about intuition because to me it's very it's like the compass saying, showing you. And I feel like so many of us are disconnected from that part of us, from our intuition, and it's not that we don't hear the voice, but when we do, then we start with the logic of like, oh, it's better to do this, it's better to do that. And especially when it comes to following your dreams, so like that moment for you when you heard that voice saying do it, take that course, go for photography. If at that moment you went, well, is it really good moment to do that? Perhaps I should wait, or maybe financially, or this or that, whatever the mind would have thrown at that moment, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation.
No, we wouldn't. And I don't know what I'd be doing right now, actually. Like, honestly, can't even imagine my life without photography because, on top of it being something that I truly and deeply enjoy and love, it's given me, so much healing. My mother passed away, recently, and well, it's almost a year ago now, actually. Um, yeah, it's like one of the few things that gave me like that light and that kind of motivation to keep going. And like sometimes I think, gosh, when you're in such a deep, dark place of grief and sadness, like seeing other people's happiness and love and light is maybe the last thing that you want, but that's what actually helped me through, when I did shoots. And I really love the editing process because I'm really looking at the picture for a long time, right? Doing little tweaks and stuff, and yeah, it's been very healing and therapeutic for me. So my clients give me a lot. I don't think they know this really. I mean, I do talk about it in some of my Instagram posts, but I don't even know why I mentioned that now. But
To be honest, I'm surprised to hear that editing is one of your favorite parts, or is your favorite part of the photo shoots, because for me, that, of course, I'm not a photographer, and that's such a boring part, like, oh, this one, that one.
yeah, no, it really is. It's like, I mean, so many times I'll catch myself like, I mean, it's not a full on wahaha laugh, but I'll be like a really big smile, or like, oh, like I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, gosh, if I feel this way about this image, and it's not even me or my child, right? Yeah, yeah, I really love it.
Something that for me goes hand in hand with intuition is being intentional. And I know that that's something that you're big on, being very intentional about everything you do.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? What does being intentional mean to you?
Gosh, I feel like it's a big question. But the reason I feel it's important to be intentional is because it is also what makes it authentic to you, like, so that why you're doing something. And hopefully the answer is not because so and so is doing it, right? But because for whatever reason it is, um, in terms of my business and choosing, like, yeah, the name, I went with my mother's maiden name. I didn't go with my my own maiden name, which is not my mother's, obviously. And I didn't go with my married name, but I went with my mother's maiden name, and that was even before she passed, right? So in that sense, it really has just become so much more significant. But for me, I felt, Imai is mine, no one else's. And I guess it's sort of like, for me, also a nod to just the Japanese side of my family that I've just always been closer to as well. And then the choice of the logo being the plumeria, and all of the meanings surrounding it, beauty, but also rebirth. And also, I think it's not a coincidence that I'm drawn to that flower. I think, everything is really, I think if we really stop and kind of just look at the things that we're drawn to, that we can't really logically explain, I think if we understood what they symbolize, what these things symbolize, I think we wouldn't be so surprised to know why we're drawn to it. I think we're very unfortunately disconnected to nature and, like, the mystery of life, which I know sounds like, very far out and woo-woo, but
beautiful. Sounds very beautiful.
But I think we are disconnected from that, so we don't look deeper into these things. Yeah, I think so much would make sense, really, if we paid more attention. So I definitely make it a point to pay more attention to these things, and to choose things that align with who I am as a person.
And do you have a specific process that you do? Do you do something, for instance, before a photo shoot, as you prepare, to set an intention? How does being intentional find expression in your work, in your life?
Well, in terms of if there's anything I do like in preparation for photo shoots, well, for example, like um, I wear very similar type of clothing and type of colors. Like I won't wear anything dark, for example, and that's actually more um, actual practical thing uh, where I mean, it's not practical to wear white, but I will wear white because white is a beautiful reflector. And when you do those really close up shots, right, sometimes if you're wearing a different color, it reflects onto your subject, and you don't want that. So that's why I always make sure to wear something light colored, for example. I always wear these plumeria uh, earrings because of my logo, and also they are earrings that I got together with my mother when she was here, so that they have an extra special meaning in that sense. So I'll always wear the same jewelry. Yeah, those are the more like intentional things that I can think of now, specifically related to shoots. And yeah, I mean, in terms of life in general, I feel we have to be very intentional with our thoughts because and I think, and you've heard me like either say it or share it, that the universe is always listening. I truly believe that. Um, and therefore, you know, you have to be intentional and you have to be at a good frequency. And that's not always easy, I feel. I mean, we live in a world where there is a lot of love and light, but there's equally much, you know, evil and darkness. And, some people are lost, for want of a better word, and it's sort of easy to maybe, if you've been attacked, to attack another person back. But I believe in karma, and I believe that, you know, you just have to sort of live in a good frequency with the universe. Basically, I'm not a religious person. I'm probably more spiritual, I guess, if me speaking about the universe and things. Yeah, being intentional with our thoughts and of course our actions. And now that I have a son as well, a little child, and they absorb everything. So there you also have to be quite intentional with like the words that you use and just the way that you act really around them, I guess. Yeah. And it's not easy, like
Yeah, which is why I asked you if you have any practice, any ritual that you do, because as I listen to you, it sounds to me like you are already, um, you know, looking at it from a psychological point of view. The levels of learning, you're at the highest level where being intentional, it's part of you. It doesn't seem to me like you need to think about it, be like, okay, so how am I being intentional here? But it seems like it's part of you, part of how you live and do things.
yeah, I think you nailed it there. Oh, even though, like I said, I mean, of course I have, we're all humans, so I have, harder days and darker days and things. But on the whole, I would say, yeah, what you described is pretty spot on, I think.
And is that something that you were raised with, as part of your family, or is this something that just as you went through life, um, for one way or for one reason or another, you practiced more and more and more until you are where you are right now, and it happens so, and it flows easily through you?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I was not raised in any kind of a religious, spiritual family at all. We didn't really have any conversations about, energy, frequency, universe. We don't really. I don't really know. I had a very, I, actually, I'd kind of forgotten about it, but now I remembered. And this also explains my very deep love for the skies. But I had a very, I guess you could say, a spiritual experience when I was 16. And we were in Spain at the time, and living in Marbella. And I think everyone was out. I was home alone. And then suddenly I looked out the window. I was studying because I was 16. So I was studying for my GCSEs, I think it was. And I looked out the window, and it was just it was very windy. I could tell that it was very windy. I could hear it. But the sky was absolutely beautiful and breathtaking. And here again, intuition, something told me I needed to go outside and get as close to the sky as possible. Like, how do I do that? Anyway, so I went out, and so we really lived right by the water at the time. And I went out and stood on these rocks, and it was really quite windy. So the waves were kind of crashing, and it was quite loud, but I just stood there and I just looked up at the sky, and I felt this incredible sense of gratitude. And the reason why this was such a strange experience was because at the time, my family was going through some very, very difficult times, like really kind of what is, what is there to be thankful for kind of situation, and especially as a 16-year-old, you're still a teenager, you're young, but I just stood there. And actually, like, thinking back on it now, like, it was right kind of sunset hour, which is my favorite time of day. And the light was kind of just, and it was cloudy, but the sun was still kind of peeking through, and getting those, very kind of spiritual-esque kind of setting. But it like my heart just expanded with this gratitude, and I started crying because it was such a profound experience, and I was just like thankful for life, and really around me life was falling apart at the time. And I think since then, like, some things happened, I guess, within me, and that's why I love the skies the way that I do. I always get inspired looking up at them. Like, every time I look up at a beautiful sky, I think there's so much expansion, there's so much love, there's like infinite possibilities. And then I think it's just evolved from there.
And speaking of the skies, there is a page on your website called What Makes Nic Tick. And in it, there is a beautiful list of all the things that make you tick. And I love it. Obviously, the skies, because if anyone's been following you on Instagram, they definitely know that you're of the sky.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing this list up because it's, in a very simple, eloquent way, who you are. It just shows, what makes you
Tick.
What makes Nic tick, and Nic as well. One of the things that you mentioned there is that you love, now that's out of my head, out of the top of my head, but it was something like flowy dresses and flip-flops all year long.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, when you were back in Sweden, that was not an option all year long.
No. Certainly not.
And I have the feeling that I know the answer, but I'm going to go with the question anyway. How did you discover who you were? Did you always have that clear sense of what makes you tick?
I think so. I mean, I think, like, growing up, if I just think about, how I was as a child growing up, like, I was never part of any big, I was never in the cool group or the popular girls group or whatever it was. I was just never interested in that. For me, it was always more about quality over having, like, a bazillion friends. Also, I was very shy growing up, which I know, people might have a hard time believing now. But there is a shy part of me, and I definitely didn't like to stand out. I mean, I could be very, vivacious and gregarious in the group of people that I knew, but then I'm not I'm not like that with people that I don't know. So that's always been something. And another thing as well is that I've never, like if I believe in something, and if I see 100 people are going in the opposite direction of what I believe in, doesn't matter. I will still stand there, and be like, this, I believe in this, right? Doesn't mean say that I can't change my mind on things, of course, but and I guess it depends on what we're talking about.
Obviously not about Leilani Musk.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's one of them. I guess that does come from knowing yourself, though, right? Because if you don't know yourself, then, and also if you don't like yourself, then you're much more easily influenced. And you have to get your validation from other people. And I mean, of course, there are times when I, fall prey to like this, oh, does this person like me? Or, you know, but I've also known from a young age that not everyone will like me, and I won't like everyone, and that's okay. you know
You're a Capricorn, but you're a human as well.
Yes, exactly.
So where can our listeners find you?
So they can find me on Instagram mainly. That's really my preferred place to be, and I say that because I can get messages on Facebook, and I'm not always checking Facebook. So I've actually missed some messages there. So Instagram is definitely where I am with my photography, and then of course there's my website, which is just nicimai.com.
And on Instagram is?
It's Nic Imai Photography.
Hey there, it's me, Rayna, your host. Thank you for listening or watching. I hope you enjoy this episode. If you'd like to learn more about Hail the Queen, please visit us at raynavanhouse.com/podcast, and you can discover more episodes, fun facts, and learn more about Hail the Queen. One more thing before you go. Please leave us a review if you're listening on iTunes. This helps us grow. And of course, share Hail the Queen with a friend or family or someone you think might enjoy the show. Thank you and have a magical day.